Steeler fans, what's going on? It's Jeff Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, here with another episode of the Steelers Preview. We're live on YouTube. We're also going to be able to be listened to on any podcast platform you can think of. Anywhere you download your podcast, search Steelers BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. You'll find us. But if you are watching live on YouTube, if you're in the live chat, or if you didn't know we had a YouTube channel, we do, search BTSC Steelers Radio, and you can get all of our podcasts that are simulcast on YouTube. That's three. That's The Standard is the Standard, myself and Lance Williams. That's my show, the Steelers Burning Question, and obviously the Steelers Preview, which is tonight. And we have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the cornerbacks in the upcoming 2019 NFL Draft. And we're going to talk about a lot of other Steelers news that's happening right now. But first, let me introduce my co-host, Bryan Anthony Davis, Debbie Downer tonight. How's it going, Bryan? How are you feeling?
Woo! Well, let me tell you this. March Madness, to me, leads to April anxiety, and that's what we're in right now. Yay!
Dave, how are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm here.
Yes, we are here, and that's half the battle. That's half the battle. Okay, so let's get to some news. This isn't really burning news. Right now, the Steelers are bringing in pre-draft visits. They're official pre-draft visits. They are allowed 30 pre-draft visits, but remember, there are certain players, certain prospects that will not count against that count. It all depends on this weird radius around the headquarters. And so players from West Virginia University, players from Pitt, obviously. I want to even say maybe Penn State. Dave, do you know off the top of your head if Penn State is in that bubble or not? I'm not sure. I know West Virginia and Pitt are.
I think, according to our own site, it would be that they would not quite be because of all the players that you've taken care of marking that wouldn't count against that. Penn State is not listed as those.
Yeah, I need to double check on that. That's something that Simon and I were talking about.
It's
but anyways,
close.
Yeah, so those don't count towards the 30. So if you last year they didn't even bring in 30 visitors, I remember. But let's say they were to bring in technically like 35. You're thinking, well, I only thought they get 30. Well, if they bring in 3 Pitt guys and 2 West Virginia guys, that's 5 that don't even count, so they still are at 30. So they're doing that now. We're going to talk about it in a second. But before we get to that, let's talk about some gambling. I like to gamble in a way. I love FanDuel. I'm never shy about placing a bet here or there with friends, whatever the case may be. Las Vegas came out with their odds for wins, the over-under on wins for NFL teams across the board. And they have set the over-under line for the Pittsburgh Steelers at 9. Now, a lot of people that are in the know think that number is going to move to 9.5 by the time the season starts. But as of right now, that line is set at 9 wins. So, Bryan, I'm going to ask you first. I want you to be honest. If you're betting, you betting over? Are you betting under? What does your gut tell you, and maybe how many wins do you actually see them getting?
First of all, when I think of the way you just said 9, I think of Jeffrey Jones and the Ferris Bueller's Day Off going 9 times. You know what? That's great. I'd like to actually put some action on that because I'm going to take the over. I think this is still a playoff team. I think this is a team that could win 10 or 11 games this season. So for me, I'm taking that over, and I'm going to do some more gambling at the buffets with some day-old seafood and see what happens.
What about you, Dave? You're taking the over or the under on the 9 wins?
I'll take the over. I'm not 100% sold on it because an article I put out before, this is not a good road schedule for the Steelers again this year. When you're looking at those 5 non-division road games that they have every year, they are all in places where the Steelers are, not just the Steelers, where Ben Roethlisberger, the starter, is either just at 500 or has a losing record there. He's only ever won 1 game in the Western Time Zone, and they have 2 out there this year. Then they go to Arizona, which is technically in the mountain. And then they go to the Jets where he has a losing record there, and to the Patriots where he has a losing record. And you could say that doesn't mean much because they're not the same teams that they've played in the past, but the Raiders and Broncos weren't supposed to be that good last year, and that was places where they've been notoriously not successful, and they lost both of those games. So that's my only concerning thing with getting to that 10 wins is the road schedule. But I don't think they're going to I don't feel like it's a team that's going to take a step backwards, but you're still going to lose one or two of those games that you might not expect.
What was the game that Roethlisberger won in the Western time zone? I'm trying to think.
That was against the Chargers, but it's not the one where Le'Veon Bell scored at the very end. That was a Michael Vick game.
It was Monday
It was
Night
another
Football.
Monday night game.
Let me jump in.
2005, Bryan?
Let me jump in. No, incorrect. Because I was there in 2005 in San Diego, and I watched Ben Roethlisberger win there. So
yeah,
wasn't that when he got rolled up
magical
on?
2005 season?
Yeah.
He left that game injured
very late in the game.
Yes,
that's his only win as a starter.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Was that not the James Harrison interception jumping over LaDainian Tomlinson game?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought.
The big leap.
So, yes. So that was okay. So that was the last and the only time. I did not realize the only time he's ever won in the Western time zone. You said Arizona's not. They're actually Mountain. I didn't realize that
actually
either.
In the Mountain.
Wait a second. Okay, so I guess we consider Denver the Mountain then, right?
Yes. He is 3-5 in Denver and 1-1 in Arizona.
Okay.
No, wait, 2-5 in Denver.
Well, he won an AFC Championship game there. I know that.
Yeah. He hasn't played. I mean, they haven't played much in San Francisco. I mean, last time they were in San Francisco was Candlestick, and that was a weird game. That was a Monday night game, wasn't it?
It was a 20-3 loss on Monday night.
And he had that ankle injury, could barely move.
Yeah, and 2011, the lights went out.
Yes, that's exactly right. Okay. I don't want to spend too much time on that. I'm going to take the over. I think this is a 10-6 team. However, I can be swayed to go 11-5 depending on how they start to gel together. I think that's going to be what the big issue is going to be with this team, because there's going to be a lot of new faces in new places where you're used to having players that have always been there or been there for a long time. So it's going to be really interesting to me as to what exactly this team is going to look like. But I'll take the over. I'll take the over big time. 9.5. Still would take the over. I don't know. I think that's the big thing with this fan base right now is they don't really know what to expect. They're just not sure. I mean, yeah, you have Ben Roethlisberger and you know what, you have a James Conner, but Antonio Brown's gone. Who's going to be the number 2 receiver? That was a question I got last night on the Steelers Burning Question when I did my Q&A, and that's a tough question to answer. Is it going to be a draft pick? Is it going to be Moncrief? Is it going to be Washington? You just don't know, and there's a lot of questions like that on this team, so we'll see. Other than that, let's talk a little division football, all right? Because earlier today, if you haven't checked it out on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, a volunteer writer, he's not a paid writer, his name on the site and his ID, like starts his mind is Jeff.Hartman, is Cliff Harris is still a punk. And if you know your Steelers history, you know all about that. And he wrote a really good article, and it's a lengthy one. And he's actually a high school football coach, and he does a lot of X's and O's stuff for the website when he is in the offseason. And it's breaking down the Ravens, defending Lamar Jackson, and other thoughts on the Steelers' biggest rival, because they still are the Steelers' biggest rival. But here's the question. How do you see the AFC North shaking out? Everyone's talking about the Browns right now. The Browns over-under line is set the same as the Steelers with 9, I believe. I think that's really high for a team that is still very unproven. Let's go with Dave. What do you think about the AFC North? How do you see it shaking out? Where do the Steelers rank? And maybe is there a team that surprises you? Dave.
Sorry, you cut out for a minute. I wasn't sure if you were asking me or Bryan first. So,
okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, it looks like I'm getting Bryan and Lance's internet connections issues. I think that I really don't think that the Ravens are going to have the year that they had last year because of the whole people don't know what to expect with Lamar Jackson thing. I think the Chargers showed it in the playoffs that if you know they saw it once, and when they saw it again the second time, they basically shut it down the whole game until it was almost out of hand. And then they got some junk yards there towards the end. So I think that's just a really big question, too much of a question mark with the Ravens. I could see them winning 11 games. I could see them winning 3. It really does come down to the Browns. And once again, how much do you, when you want the Browns to lose, they're going to win. And when you want the Browns to win, they're going to lose, because that's the way the Browns are. And there's just so many wild cards in this division right now. People don't know how the Steelers are going to bounce back. They don't really know are the Browns going to be as good on the field as they are on paper. Yes, Cincinnati started, what were they, 5-1 last year, 4-1, something like that, before they fell off the map and now look to be a dumpster fire. It's really hard to predict it.
What about you, Dave? How do you see the division shaking out? I'm sorry, Brian. Did I say Dave again?
Yes, you did.
It's been a long day. Brian, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, first and foremost, the Bengals suck, and they are heading down into like, if this was the NBA, they would be heading into being even more and more of a lottery team. In fact, I would expect them to be contending for a top 5 pick next year. I think they're that bad. The Baltimore Ravens are interesting to me. I mean, like Dave said, you can never tell who they're going to be. But there's 2 main things that I need to bring up about them. One, Ozzie Newsome is gone, and that guy had some magic. In fact, he drafted everybody he could from the University of Alabama, so that might put some intrigue in the draft this year with him being gone. So that'll be nice. But the thing about Ozzie, he knew how to build a team really well. I don't know if they have that right now. They brought in 2 sexy picks, Mark Ingram, which could be, at his age, could be hit or miss. Earl Thomas, I mean, he's up there in age. That's a sexy pick, a big name. That's something they don't typically do too much of. I know they brought in the Weddles and they brought in names over the years, but that defense is too depleted for my liking. So that's always been their strength as of late. Like Dave said, you kind of figured out Lamar Jackson lately. So I think that's a 9-7 team as well. Cleveland. Now we have talking about sexy. We have all these big names coming in. You've got Beckham in there. You've got everybody. You know, I love the guy that they brought in from the New York Giants, Olivier Vernon. I think that's a really nice pick. They're kind of weak in the middle on defense. They've got, I mean, when you have those 2 LSU guys. As far as wideouts, you have Nick Chubb. Later on, you're going to have Kareem Hunt after 8 games. That's some obvious firepower. They could be the Miami Heat, or they could be the 2011 Philadelphia Eagles that were like a consensus preseason pick because they brought all these big free agent names in and just couldn't get it done. So I really think this team is going to improve. I think they're really going to contend for the division title, but this is not a 12-4 team. This is not a 13-3 team. They're probably a 10-6 team at best.
Okay. So for me personally, I think the Steelers win the division, and I'll go back to what Lance Williams, my co-host on The Standard is the Standard. You can listen to that show on Sundays here live on YouTube. He said it comes down to quarterback play a lot of times in the National Football League. And who has the best quarterback in the division? The Steelers. I don't think anyone's going to argue against that Ben Roethlisberger is better than Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, and, of course, Andy Dalton. So I'll take the Steelers at 10-6 to win the division. And I think that, believe it or not, the Ravens and the Browns are going to be 9-7 teams. I think both of them will be very, very close. I think that the division is going to beat itself up in a lot of different ways. And I can see the Bengals finishing, I'll go with a sexy 6-10. And like Brian said, maybe there'll be a top 5 pick. Will depend on how, but I just think that offensive line is not good. And their defense was not good last year. And they didn't really make much improvement in free agency. So I think the division, obviously, it's a Steelers show. Most of us are going to lean the way of the Steelers. I hope you don't view that as us being nothing but homers, because I don't think that's the case. If I felt that there was a team that's better in the division, I would say so. But let's be honest. I said the Steelers would finish 10-6. Therefore, I would also have 9-7, 9-7 teams. It's not like they're running away with it. So the division's going to be weird this year. It's going to be very different. No Flacco. With Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, it just looks really different than what you're used to seeing. Defensively, they look different. Bryan attested to all the moves they've made. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. If you're in the live chat, let us know what you think about the division and who you think is going to win. And lastly, before we get to our Stat Geek segment, I want to ask you guys the burning question that I talked about on my show last night and kind of get your input. Now, if you want to hear my take on it, I'm talking to the listeners here, go to YouTube, go to a podcast, and you can listen to the Steelers burning question. I explain everything in detail, so make sure you check that out. But Bryan, I do mean Bryan this time. The burning question was, who's under more pressure in 2019, Mike Tomlin or Ben Roethlisberger? When I say pressure, I'm talking pressure to succeed, to win. What are your thoughts?
It's Coach T. Look, Mike Tomlin is not really on the hot seat because he's never had that losing season, but people are losing confidence in him. They feel like he is the one who lost the locker room last year, and they're blaming that. I kind of think it's addition by subtraction, and I think it is paramount for somebody like Mike Tomlin to go into the locker room and say, hey, look, I gave liberties. I gave lots of liberties. Look, that's gone because I gave an inch, a yard was taken. Actually, a lot of yards were taken, and we just need to get back to basics as a team. So all those benefits of being a veteran, they're not going to be as much. He needs to reel that locker room in. As far as Ben Roethlisberger goes, I really don't think there's a hot seat, that he's on a hot seat at all. He is going to come in and feel that he needs to go ahead and drive this team because of the criticism, because believe me, he's going to say that he doesn't listen to criticism, but he listens and he feels it, and you know how he is. Remember the cowboy, maybe I'm a cowboy, maybe I just don't have it anymore at week 5 against Jacksonville in 2017, and then he came in and reeled off a lot of victories. That's kind of what I feel he's going to do, because I feel like he wants to prove it. But I think with these names coming out, especially like we talked about last week, James Harrison coming out and saying, no, he's a good leader, he's a good player. Lots of players coming out. Most recently, Ryan Switzer just came out and backed him. So he has the backing of this team, and fans in the know, fans out there that really understand the situation, don't think it's Ben. And especially the big thing is he's taken a big step to let teams know, let the fans know, let the league know that he's all business this year by getting rid of that radio show as well. So it looks like that's going to happen. And I am, Tony and I actually disagreed on this on the Hangover the other night, but I think it's a great thing that he's going to go ahead and get rid of that show. So pressure's more on Mike Tomlin. I think the pressure on Ben Roethlisberger is more manufactured just from this situation with the wide receiver and running back that are now departed.
And the Steelers hangover that he spoke of is on Mondays on Blog Talk Radio, but you can check it out on our website Tuesday morning and always on our podcast platform. That's what Bryan and Tony do a great job with that show, so check that out. Dave, pressure, Big Ben, Tomlin, talk about it.
Okay, it's simple in my eyes that Coach Tomlin is going to have more pressure within the organization, meaning within what's going on with the Steelers that we might not even know about, see about, or maybe some of the most local people will be able to do. Ben is going to have the most pressure in the court of public opinion based on people that don't even necessarily follow the Steelers and just want to roast him for anything that happens. If Ben doesn't have a good year, it's going to be because he chased guys off or stuff like that. So Ben's he's not on the hot seat. He's not going to lose his job. Could Coach Tomlin be on the hot seat? Possibly, but we might not see that as much. But how he runs things inside of that organization that we may not even see is going to be where he's going to have the pressure with that, but we're going to see more from national media and everything else based on how Roethlisberger responds and the pressure he might be to succeed this year.
Yeah, I mean and I know that Vodka Drinker, who's a regular in our group chat here, our live chat, he said it best. The whole team's going to have pressure. I mean, this team has underperformed the last 2 years, going back to that horrible loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2017. And there's still a lot of the players that were on that team still on the roster. And trust me, they're going to feel the pressure. They're going to feel the pressure. But I think ultimately you guys hit the nail on the head and you agreed with me in terms of saying that it was Mike Tomlin. Now, before we get to our Stat Geek segment, the segment where Dave rattles off Lord knows what kind of stats this week, Bryan is running a really cool feature on the website, and it is something that he and I both kind of put our heads together with. It's called The Best of the Rest, and it was focusing mainly on the best Pittsburgh Steelers teams to not win a Super Bowl. He likes to do a March Madness type breakdown. I agree. I think it's a cool little feature. Bryan, how's everything going? I know we're going into round 2. Who's still alive? Who's been eliminated? What are your thoughts on it all together?
Well, right now there's a very good matchup right now. The number 1 seed, the 2004 Pittsburgh Steelers. I call it the beginning of a new era is what that team is labeled, because that was the 15-1 Ben Roethlisberger. You like that, Dave? Thanks. It was Ben's rookie year. They went 15-1. They ultimately they almost they should have lost in the divisional round to the New York Jets. Doug Bryan could not kick at least even one field goal when he had a chance to kick 2. They're really lucky they advanced. I was in the stands in January of 2005 to watch them lose to the Patriots. But that was the beginning of beginning of a new beginning for them, because Plexico left. Everybody was like, "Oh no, Plexico's gone. We lost our star wide receiver." And next thing you know, 2005 happens and they win the whole thing. They're going up against one of my favorite teams of all time, the 1995 Pittsburgh Steelers, with that big nasty D defense. You had Woodson and Lake and Lloyd and Green, and that was just a team. Neil O'Donnell had a great season too. That team started out 3-4, so it almost looks like it could go either way. I think 2005 is going to go ahead. Excuse me. I think 2004 is going to go ahead and pull that one out. The other teams still alive. We have a very interesting team, that 1976 team, the team that only surrendered 28 points in a 9-game span to finish the season. They lost Franco. They lost Rocky Bleier in the AFC divisional game. Ended up going to the AFC Championship game without those guys and having Reggie Harrison at running back. They lost 24-7 to Oakland. So that's a really interesting team. We have other teams like the team that lost to Green Bay in Super Bowl 45, that 2010 team with that amazing defense. 2001 with Cordell and the Bus, that 9/11 year. When they went 13-3. So there's some really cool teams left. Check this out. We go through the entire team and highlight it. It's like a little trip back into the DeLorean, going back in time and checking these teams out. And it's going to run. We're getting ready to run the second matchup of the second round tomorrow. And then we should have the finals in about a week and a half.
Yeah, and we haven't had a ton of traction on these, and the polls average about, I don't know, 300 some votes. It should be more than that, unless you're not a Steelers. I get some people are in like our NFL draft mode, and they don't want to see anything that's not draft related. It's a good off-season piece to break up the monotony of the draft, in my opinion, and check it out. So make sure you check that out. That'll run tomorrow. The next, I should say, second round matchup. All right. David, are you ready for the Stat Geek segment of the week?
Am I ready? Oh, guys, I could not keep time. I I'm going to do something similar to that last week, but something that's going to keep us from any internet connection. Shouldn't be a problem because we're not going to have to time it out to see who could answer faster. What it is I came up with what was originally three rounds of questions, and then I kept coming up with more. So technically I have 5 rounds, but we'll only do 3. But we're going to pick which 3 of the 5 we do. And in each one, there'll be an A and a B. Whoever picks it, you guys will choose if you want question A or B. If you get it right, you get 2 points. If you get it wrong, we're going to steal for 1 point because sometimes once you know the wrong answer is gone, then it's got to be something else.
Right.
So this is what we're going to do. We're going to start off. I'm going to give you guys 5 topics of the regular rounds, and you're going to pick a topic. And then whether you want A or B, I'm going to ask you the question, and then we'll go on to the other one. We'll start with Bryan. So just because I feel bad from him for last week. So here are your 5.
And I lost last week. I legitimately lost.
You legitimately lost. So Jeff was Geek of the Week. So we'll see this week who's going to be the Geek of the Week. So here are your 5 topics, and you just pick which one you want. Your topics are supporting cast, greater or less than, cream of the crop, big fish in a little pond, or bigger isn't always better.
I'll have fish in the pond, please. For
big fish in a little pond. Do you want A or B?
Go ahead, give me A.
Give you A. Okay, here we go. These are questions dealing with players drafted by the Steelers that came out of smaller schools. All right. Other than Antonio Brown, what other player in the Kevin Colbert era, so this is 2000 on, was drafted out of Central Michigan?
I know.
It's Bryan. It's your question, Bryan. Yes.
Okay, I am going to go with. Oh gosh, this might be Western Michigan. Let's go with Keon Adams.
That was Western Michigan. So Central Michigan. Jeff, do you have it?
L.T. Walton.
That is correct. It is L.T. Walton. Jeff with the steal. So here we go. Let me make a note there. All right. So there we go. Jeff, here's your question now. Because you get question B.
Yep.
I wish you guys would have got the opposite questions because I think Bryan would get this one. So we'll see. This is once again. This was a player who was drafted in the Kevin Colbert era, so 2000 on, who was the only player who he was drafted by the Steelers, but the only player in the NFL to play out of Tusculum University. Bryan's face.
T-U-S. I didn't hear the college.
It was. I would pronounce it Tusculum. T-U-S-C-U-L-U-M. Yes. Now this is Jeff's question.
Okay, I got that. Go ahead.
Jeff. See if Jeff can get it.
Let me tell me when I can steal.
Okay. He can go and steal now. I have no idea.
You have no idea? All right, Bryan for the steal.
I'm going to make a guess and say Nate Washington.
Oh, that was a good guess, but that wasn't right.
He was Tiffin.
Mm-hmm.
Tiffin, gosh.
Yeah, it was something like that.
I knew that. Go ahead. Tusculum?
Yeah. It was one Ricardo Coakley in 2004, round 2 of 2004. So he was the next player drafted after Ben Roethlisberger. And the only player ever to play in the NFL out of Tusculum. All right, Jeff, you get to pick. Do you need me to say the topics again?
Just pick one. I don't care.
No. Come on. Supporting cast, greater than or less than, cream of the crop, or bigger isn't always better.
Did we just do bigger is always better?
No, we did big fish in a little pond.
Oh, good Lord.
Come on, Jeff. This is fun.
This is like homework. Okay, let's go with cast. Yes, we'll do supporting cast.
You want supporting cast. All right, so here we go. Do you want A or B?
A.
Okay, supporting cast. This is people drafted since Ben Roethlisberger that have been able to help him out within one. So in other words, you can be off by one. Since Ben Roethlisberger was drafted in round 1 of 2004, how many receivers, either wide receivers or tight end, have the Steelers drafted? Jeff is thinking.
I'm thinking. For our audio listeners, there's nothing wrong with your sound. I'm thinking.
So it's wide receivers and tight ends
in any round.
Any round, drafted by the Steelers. This is mainly just see if you can guess close enough. That's why it's within one.
Okay, I could go through every draft in my head. I'm just not going to do that. Brian's doing that now. I'm going to say 7.
You're going to say 7 wide receivers or tight ends.
Sure.
That is incorrect. Brian.
He's had more time to think about all this. He said more time.
Okay, I'm going to go with. Let's go with 11.
Okay, my goodness, guys, you guys weren't even halfway there. Let's see.
You're combining tight ends and wide receivers. Give us one. I mean, that's a lot to think about.
Because it's people that Ben can throw the ball to. Any receiver.
Well, what's the number, Dave?
I was going to try to do something creative, but I don't have time to look it up. The number is 24.
Goodness gracious.
They have drafted 24 wide receivers or tight ends since Ben was drafted in 2004.
Okay. All right.
So you're ready, Brian? Extremely similar question. Since Ben Roethlisberger was drafted in round 1 in 2004, how many offensive linemen have the Steelers drafted? If you can guess it within one.
Okay. You know what? I'm just gonna go with 14. Let's just let's go with 15. The number of years he's been in the league.
All right.
1 a year.
That is not close enough. If Jeff wants to try to steal,
I'll say 19.
Oh, Jeff, you were extremely close to getting the point because the answer was 21. So they have not hesitated with getting Ben supporting cast of people to throw the ball to and people to protect him. They have constantly rolled in at least 1, if not 2 a year in both receivers and offensive linemen. So, all right, we'll do one more round, unless you want to do all 5, but we can do one more round. We've got, we've got greater than or less than, cream of the crop, or bigger isn't always better.
Let's go cream of the crop.
Cream of the crop, B. Okay, here we go. Well, that's on this page. This is talking about some of the Steelers' all-time best draft picks. Okay. How many of the Steelers' all-time first-round draft picks are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame? First-round pick of the Steelers and in the Hall of Fame.
First-round draft picks.
First-round draft picks by the Steelers in the Hall of Fame.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna start in 1969. You've got 1, 2, 8, 3, 8, 7 would be 3.
And Brian is thinking.
I'm just, you know what? Actually, I'm just gonna go with I'm gonna go with 3.
With 3?
No, wait,
Jeff.
4.
Okay, he's going with 4. Jeff for a steal?
6.
You were very close. The answer is 7.
Well, I would get the point.
I didn't say within 1 on this one.
Oh, God bless America.
Oh, come on. Give him the
point. I'm going to give you the point. Yeah, it's 7. They are in reverse order. Rod Woodson, 87. Lynn Swann, 74. Frank L. Harris, 72. Terry Bradshaw, 70. Joe Green, 69. Len Dawson, 57, who we mentioned last week. And the great Bill Dudley in 1942.
Wait, what round was Dermontti Dawson drafted in? Do you know, Brian, off the top of your head?
Second.
Okay.
Got it there. Yep.
Okay.
All right. You ready, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
You might be able to get this one. Since drafting Terry Bradshaw first overall in 1970, how many top 10 draft picks have the Steelers made since then?
Could you repeat that, please?
Okay. Since they drafted Terry Bradshaw first overall, only player they've ever had first overall, how many times since then have the Steelers had a top 10 draft pick?
See, it's funny because Ben wasn't even a top 10 pick. I'm going to go with 9 times.
9 times.
And that might be a little high.
His head, Brian. I think he's trying to count them.
I'm going to go, actually, since Terry Bradshaw, I'm going to go 2. Woodson at number 10 and Tim Worley in 89.
87.
I'm sorry?
Oh, no, wait. He is 89. It was Woodson that was 87. Sorry. I said the wrong number.
Yeah, 87 and 89.
87 and 89. Yes, but they were actually a total of...
John Renstra. Renstra.
That's 3.
86.
But there was actually 5 because in 1971 was Frankie Lewis. And you guys are forgetting the most recent, 2000. Plaxico Burress was 8th overall. Yeah. So there was 5. Right. But I do have a bonus round.
I'm terrible, Jeff.
These are hard, but these might be all right. Here's the bonus round. There's only one question per category, and you pick what your question is. And we're gonna let Brian go first. These are worth 3 points. You ready?
Oh.
Here you go. We've got Kicking It Old School, The Kids in the Hall, or Diamond in the Rough.
Let's go Kids in the Hall.
Kids in the Hall. Let's see. I got to flip back to this one. Okay, Kids in the Hall is dealing with the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Okay, and it's this: who was the only player drafted by the Steelers in the 6th round or later to be elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a player? So the criteria is drafted by the Steelers in the 6th round or later. There's only one player that has been inducted into the Hall of Fame as a player.
Is this modern era? Is this 69 up, or is this?
Nope. This is anytime.
Okay. Let me go with no, this might be I mean, he went in as a coach, but they drafted him as a player. So could it be Tony Dungy?
Tony Dungy, I don't think was drafted. I think wasn't he was a undrafted free agent.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was a really good guess. Jeff, do you have any clue?
No, not at all.
No clue? Okay. You guys go kick yourself. Because he wasn't because he was a great Steeler. He didn't actually even play for the Steelers other than being on the practice squad before being traded to the Baltimore Colts.
Johnny Unitas.
It was Johnny Unitas.
So you know what? I started in 1969.
Yep. And Jim Finks was also another one, but he was elected as an executive, not as a player. So hey Jeff. Oh wait, I'm on the wrong page. Here you go. So what you got left? You got Kicking It Old School or Diamond in the Rough?
Diamond in the I'm not old school. I'm not good at old school, so we'll go with the other one.
You might have done pretty good on that one, but we'll go with the Diamond in the Rough. And this is another word say it. This is another late round draft pick. Okay. What player drafted by the Steelers in the 7th round or later has started the most games as a Steeler? So who's someone drafted, not undrafted free agent, drafted by the Steelers in the 7th round or later and started the most games for him? I think Brian thinks he might know who this is.
Go ahead, Brian.
You want to have it, Jeff?
No.
Oh, come on. This is...
My head hurts.
I'm not giving you guys random people. I'm giving like high, well-known people. You got it, Brian?
Brett Kiesel.
Oh, Brett Kiesel was up there, but it wasn't Kiesel. I actually had that written down as Kiesel was really, really close. I'll give you a hint. They have 4 Super Bowl rings.
Mike Wagner.
He was
Pryor.
Mike
Roger
Wagner.
Dwyer was like,
I was going to say Mike Wagner was in the 5th round. Okay. I will tell you,
Dwyer was drafted late.
He is one of 2 Steelers that has twice All-Pro, 6 Pro Bowls, 4 Super Bowl rings, and is not in the Hall of Fame, but should be.
LC.
And that is one LC Greenwood. He
Love that
started 135 games as a Steeler. So that leads the most.
What about
being
Kiesel?
Kiesel was, I had it written. I had to flip it to a different page because I ran out of room and had to make sure I had everything I could read it easy. Kiesel was up there. He was in the top few. But that was honestly who I thought Jeff was going to guess. So
well, I mean, that just means that I win again. I had 2 points. Brian had 1.
Maybe I gotta.
You beat me. No, I got 0. I got nothing right.
I'll do my best to make it a little bit easier next time because some of these.
He's bringing up guys that were born in the 1800s.
Yes, this is true. This is true.
Do you want to know what the kicking it old school question was?
No, save it.
Yeah, because it's about a kicker. It's about a kicker, right?
Well, is it kicking or is it old school? You just don't know.
Okay. Well, you know what? I think
we'll save it.
New rule. I think all stats should be Joe Green on. Modern.
Well, you know what? There was some of the other ones we didn't do. They were either a lot of these other questions were either from 70 on or from 2000 on. So I'll stick to
from now on. I'm just gonna shout out Johnny Blood McNally. How's that? Johnny Blood.
Okay.
All right. So now that the Stat Geek segment has reached its end, we now go to our preview segment of the show where we're talking about the 2019 NFL Draft cornerbacks. Now, guys, right off the top, I want to give you some players. I mean, we all know some. The cornerback from Washington, Byron Jones, I believe is his name. Greedy Williams from Byron Murphy. Jones plays for the Cowboys, I believe. Murphy, you have Greedy Williams from LSU. Who are some other cornerbacks? And there's 2 questions I want you guys to answer for me right off the bat. Number 1 is some other cornerbacks that the Steelers could possibly be targeting. And secondly, do you view any of these cornerbacks as round 1 talents if the Steelers are picking at 20? Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that Devons are gone. Steelers didn't trade. They're gone. So now you have these cornerbacks sitting there. Is there anyone that you think, you know what, this is a first-round talent? Brian, who are you looking at? Who's impressed you? And would you take one of these players in the first round? Go ahead.
Greedy Williams, I would take in the first round. I love this guy. He's 6'1", 185. He is the kind of corner that could go. He could even go top 10, possibly. Lately, he's been slipping as late, but that's the guy I'd look at. They have been linked to DeAndre Baker and Byron Murphy have also been mentioned as first rounders, possibly, but they would be they're probably going to go in the first round, but they're going to go in the 20s, these guys.
Okay, what about you, Dave? Are there any players, cornerbacks you're really looking at that you think could be first-round talents?
All right. Well, I had some connection issues there, and I missed a little bit of what Brian said. So I know he was saying a lot of these guys are supposed to be further back. I even printed it up so I could read it easier. Pro Football Focus, did you see their mock draft? They had, they had 5 corners going in the first round. They had both Greedy Williams and Byron Murphy going ahead of Devin White in the top 10. Then they had DeAndre Baker going 15th. And then their only other cornerbacks they had was, I can't say the guy's name, Brian Hummy, Oruwariye, Amani Oruwariye.
I was practicing it before the show. I think it's Oruwariye. Okay. I might be wrong.
Yep.
But out of Penn State.
Yeah, they had David Long going in the first round, 25th. And according to CBS, he was like 130 something. So bottom line is what this shows is there's so much disparity in these corners of who you think is good and who you think isn't. And the problem is you really don't know what's going to happen. I remember several years ago when everyone was projecting, oh, the Steelers are going to get Eli Apple later on, and he went in the top 10. And sometimes you think these corners are not going to be that great, and then everyone rushes on corners. I've seen the rush come more on corners than anything else. So, like according to CBS, the top corner is of course Greedy Williams, and they had him. I'm just trying to check it again to make sure they had him 25th. So according to them, the Steelers would be reaching a little bit to take him in the first round. I don't think that's true either. So I'll be honest with you, I don't want a day one corner. I know some people might. I don't even know if I want a day two corner. I mean, perhaps people might think I'm crazy, and that's because you have Joe Hayden, you brought in Steven Nelson, you throw in another corner into that mix, and the Steelers have not been good at drafting them. That I would almost. Is there going to be room for them and everything else? I just think that there's another position of need, knowing how the Steelers have missed so many times on corners.
Yeah, it brings up a really good point. I mean, they haven't drafted a first-round corner in a long time, but
Other
Bryan,
than
it
Artie
looks like
Burns.
well, right. It looks like Bryan, you want to say something.
If you listen to The Hangover the other day, this is something that I'm passionate about. It's not that the Steelers are bad at drafting corners, especially early. I'm tired of hearing that, and I completely disagree. And the reason I completely disagree is when they picked Artie Burns, he was the 5th corner off the board. Eli Apple was in that draft. They had their eyes all over William Jackson III. Cincinnati knew that. They took him after just taking a corner in the first round 2 years before. It was just 1 year before, and it was just a situation where they are not in position to get that great corner. Those great corners like a Jalen Ramsey are going in the third. I mean, I think Ramsey went 4th or 5th overall. I think those great corners are going way too early, and they have not had a chance to go ahead and get them. So it's not the fact that my friends tell me Steelers can't draft a corner. Yeah, they can. It's just the fact that if they were in position to get these guys like a Ramsey, if they were in position to get a guy like Vernon Hargraves, they were going to go ahead. They would have picked these guys. No one would have passed on these guys. They just weren't in position to get them. And when you're in the 20s, those corners, good corners, aren't in the 20s. If there's a corner in the 20s, it's pretty much a reach. So, yeah, they can draft corners. They haven't done it too well, but they can do it if they're in position.
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm not going to disagree with that at all. But I do think that the biggest problem with picks like Artie Burns, or some people even add Terrell Edmonds last year, is when the Steelers had a plan and their plan didn't come through, and it seemed like that their backup plan people just didn't quite get. I trusted them with Artie Burns, and I thought Artie Burns was going to develop into something because I have the trust that the Steelers know what they're talking about. I actually think when it comes here, I don't think that those guys that they say might be available in the 20s that some people are having them go in the top 10. I think it's going to be a big wild card of where the corners go. And I don't want to say that the Steelers would be, oh yeah, it'd be nice to get Greedy Williams. Watch him go in the top 10. You just don't know. I think if they're that good, that people are just not talking about them, and then they're going to take them. I wouldn't mind them. Like they had a guy in today. They had the guy from Central Michigan, Sean Bunting. He would be more of a second round corner that they could do. I'd be better with that. My thing is, I don't want them to take a corner in the first. They haven't drafted one for so long, other than Artie Burns, is because the right corner hasn't been there at that pick. And I don't trust that it's going to play out that way this year. So I don't want to go into it thinking, oh, well, if the inside linebackers are gone, they should just grab a corner, because I know it's tough to say because there's only so many players that can go. Only 19 players can go before the Steelers pick. It can't be 30 guys. That they're going to have to get someone is going to be left out. The question is there going to be the run on the linebackers? Is there going to be run on the corners? Are people going to go crazy over quarterbacks? It's too many wild cards.
Yeah, and that's the honest truth. There's always surprise picks in the draft. There's people that think like this. I think like the Colts. The Colts are going to take a flashy wide receiver. They end up taking a guard, and then that throws everything off. But to Brian's point about criticism of the Steelers drafting, you might not be able to criticize the picks themselves because the players might not have been there, but you can certainly criticize the process. I'm sorry, but William Jackson III gets taken, and you have no backup plan other than to have a knee-jerk pick of Artie Burns because he was your next graded cornerback. I don't agree with that. I mean, if cornerback was such a glaring need, which we all knew it had been, and you're not aggressively trying to move up to get a player, if you think William Jackson III is that good, you don't sit back and let a division rival pick him off. That's just, I'll criticize the process day and night. I think there's some really glaring flaws in the Steelers process. But at the same time, it's all about results. Sometimes perception is reality, and that is the Steelers haven't picked a good cornerback because maybe their process is wrong. They're not being aggressive enough. They're not showing that, we're not going to let this guy get away from us. And that's kind of the approach I'm thinking they should have this year with, if they really think one of these two Devons is their guy that could really be that transformative piece for the defense, then you have to be aggressive. You have to be aggressive. And that's just my personal opinion. So I will criticize the process. I think they've gotten lucky in a few cases. Like TJ Watt, a lot of people saw him as an early second round pick, had a great combine, boosted his stock. Talk about a steal. At the end of the first round, I think a lot of people are going to be kicking themselves for not taking TJ Watt earlier in the draft, but they've gotten burned more than they have succeeded in the early rounds, especially the first round when you go back and look. So that's just my take on it. Guys, any other cornerbacks? Doesn't have to be round one. Any other cornerbacks? I know, Dave, you mentioned the Central Michigan cornerback. Any other cornerbacks that you like that the Steeler fans might want to keep their eyes on? Brian, we'll go with you first.
I like Trayvon Mullin from Clemson. I know he didn't. He's 6'1". He's 199. He does have some speed to him. A lot of people weren't thrilled with him in the late in the season last year, but he is a very good prospect. He's a big guy. He's someone that I think kind of fits the mold of what the Steelers need. There's a couple other bigger names in there from Temple. Rock Ya-Sin. That's just a great name. I want to see Jeff wearing a Ya-Sin jersey. But he's out of Temple. He's 5'11", 192. And if Tyler Matakevich has taught us anything, that nobody from Temple is above 6 foot. Also, a guy from another guy that we saw in the college football playoffs last year, Julian Love from Notre Dame. He's 5'10", 195. He's a pretty good player. He is probably a second round, most likely a mid-second rounder, maybe falling to the third, but I doubt it. And there's one more guy to go ahead, and we talked about ORAA, but there's a guy from Auburn. He's 6'1", runs a 4.3. He's more of a press corner. His name is Jamel Dean. And that's somebody, he's, like I said, 6'1", 206 pounds, Auburn Tiger, someone that I could see them looking at in the third or fourth round, possibly. Dave?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is it depends on who you're looking at of whether or not they think someone is going to be a good corner or not. I don't have a speed down here, but because the one thing that jumped out at me was there's a kid out of Vanderbilt, came out as a junior, which a lot of times the Steelers like that. I think it's Joejuan. It's actually spelled Joejuan, like Joejuan Williams. He's 6'4". Okay. Do you want a 6'4" corner? I don't know what his speed is. I don't know much about him. When it comes to corner, if you're not going to, it's kind of like the inside linebacker. If you don't get the top two, I'd rather you not use your first round pick on it. But the problem is I can't say that I love a corner at second round and I love a linebacker at second round because you only got one second round pick. So you can't just sit back and wait for all of them. So we'll see what they have to do.
Yeah, and cornerback's definitely going to be on the Steelers' radar. I don't think it's going to be as high as it was before they got Steven Nelson in free agency, but it's still going to be high on their list. Now, Dave, I asked you to bring up who the Steelers have already brought in. This is an up-to-date list as of Thursday. The players they've brought in, 4 days they've hosted at least 4 prospects a day. I want to say the total was up to 18 visits. Dave, out of those players that they've brought into the Steelers headquarters to get a closer look at them, who has impressed you? Who are some players you're like, I'm really glad they brought this guy in? Is there anyone on that list?
Yeah, just of any position. They've brought in a lot of running backs because you know that's something they might be looking at further down. A lot of people were wondering if they've brought in anyone that could possibly be their first round pick. They brought in the wide receiver out of Notre Dame, which a lot of people think that could be a good fit. But the biggest thing is the linebacker out of West Virginia, David Long, and then they also had today the linebacker out of Texas, Gary Johnson. We talked about both of them. We mentioned them both last week, and then the corner they brought in out of Central Michigan today. Like I said, he would be more of a second round, or even possibly if that first pick in the third round they have that's in the top 6 picks of the third round. So I don't see a quote unquote first round target pick that's come in so far. I know other people have commented on that as well. So maybe they're just really trying to mask what they're doing this year. So people aren't going to try to snag the guy right in front of them, or because they're looking to trade and they don't want everyone to know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, Bryan, did you get to see the list of players that have come in for pre-draft visits, or is there anyone that catches your eye?
You know, those guys that mentioned, and I'm not sure if I saw this on the list. Was Miles Sanders from Penn State, was he brought in, guys? Because I've heard them linked to him in the mid rounds. I'm not sure if I can't remember whether he's on the list or not.
He was there the first day.
Okay. I actually think that guy came out right away and said, I would love to go ahead and play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's before he even came in. But keep in mind with these visits that they had a lot of meetings at the combine, and they take these guys out to dinner, and so they don't have to bring some of these higher profile guys in because they've already had a chance to talk to them. But I'm wondering how these visits work. Is it like college where you take them out to the strip bars, you do keg stands with, like Sean Serretz, the offensive line coach, is doing keg stands with these guys, so you're hitting on chicks with Art Rooney for a second. I don't know, but that's always been intriguing to me.
I bet it's a very nervous meeting over a meal. I bet that the players are sitting there with Kevin Colbert, Mike Tomlin, probably position coach, and they're probably getting grilled on questions and what are their philosophies on this, depending on what position they play. I bet that's a really high tense situation, but that's just me. That's my opinion. So at this point in the show, this is where we kind of draw the proverbial line in the sand. The football stuff's over.
Wait,
what's up now?
I've got a Steelers either or if you want to do it.
We can. Okay, so there might be football.
We can do that one, and then you can tune out if you don't really care about football.
This is our either or segment, which we do at the end of every show, at least in the off season. And it's where we've just one at a time go around and say, hey, either or, who would you pick? What would you like? What would you do? And it gives listeners a chance to kind of get to know us better. And personally, for someone that listens to a lot of sports talk radio, the times that you get that inside look into the host as a person, I feel it's the better. So that's why we started the show. So Dave, you said you have a Steelers either or. Why don't you kick it off?
Yes, I actually had two either ors, but I thought, well, I'll throw out this Steeler one. Okay, here's what happened. It's kind of a non-realistic situation, but we're going to just see how we really feel about people. Okay.
All mine are non-realistic.
Yeah. But this is deal with the Steelers. Okay, Ben Roethlisberger gets upset that he's not allowed to do his radio show anymore and decides he's going to retire. And the NFL decides that they feel so bad for the Steelers that they're going to run basically an expansion draft of quarterbacks within the AFC North. Here's your either or. I was only going to do 3, but I'll throw the 4th one in. Who would you take to come into camp as your starting quarterback for next season without Ben Roethlisberger? Are you taking Andy Dalton? Are you taking Baker Mayfield? I guess I'll go ahead and throw in Lamar Jackson, although I was going to leave him out altogether. Or are you taking Mason Rudolph?
Oh my gosh, are you really asking me that question?
I know your answer. That's why Bryan should answer first.
Bryan, everyone should know. If you listen to any podcast with me, you know my answer. So, Bryan, go ahead.
It's going to be Baker Mayfield. I love this guy. I mean, I know I'm sure you don't, but I bring in Baker Mayfield.
I want to answer before Jeff because we all know his answer.
Go ahead.
Okay. My answer is the only other quarterback in my lifetime, because when I was really following the draft, other than Ben Roethlisberger, that I really, really, really wanted the Steelers to draft. And that would be, you think Jeff is bad, I'm worse. That is one Mason Rudolph. I wanted the Steelers to take him in the first round last year. I seriously did. I didn't think he was going to be there. Frankly, I had him, out of all the quarterbacks coming out last year, I had him higher than Mayfield. A lot of people did not have Mayfield as the number 1, and it was a shock when the Browns took him number 1. Give me Mason Rudolph. I like the way he's built. I like the way he throws. I think he fits into the mold of what the Steelers do. Give me him. That's who I would take into camp.
My infatuation with Mason Rudolph has been well documented. I really hope. I have said this a bunch on a lot of shows dating back to last year's draft. It's been a long time since I've been really excited about a pick. And it's been a really, really long time since I've been excited about a 3rd round pick. And Mason Rudolph, I was excited. I was like, yes, I feel like they got the guy for the future. I guess in my mind, you think about the ebbs and flows the Steelers had at the quarterback position after Bradshaw, before Ben. And I guess maybe I thought this guy could be a perfect transition. If Roethlisberger retires, Rudolph might have enough. I'm not saying he's going to be the equivalent or better, but enough to solidify the position and keep them winning for the long term, for the long haul. I'm a big Mason Rudolph fan, so that's where I'm going to go as well.
I'd have to say that 2018 was the first time in a long time that I felt that if Ben was going to miss an extended amount of time, that the Steelers weren't absolutely screwed. Because I know that Dobbs was the backup, but I felt that they would eventually go to Rudolph if it was going to be a long time there. I can't wait to see him. I loved watching him in the preseason. Bryan thinks we're crazy, but we are both. All I'd say is this: when you order that jersey, Jeff, if they got a 5XL, save on the shipping, and we'll just go together.
There you go.
I want to ask what kind of mushrooms you guys have had on your pizza, because I just don't. I'm just not sure about that. Baker Mayfield. I mean, Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback. We saw what he did last year. What he's going to do with weapons this year. He's going to be a Pro Bowl quarterback in this league.
He'll never be able to see over top of Al Villanueva. He's just a little guy back there.
Well, yeah. You ever hear of a guy named Drew Brees?
Yeah, I know. I just like picking on him because he's a Brown.
He might be a Pro Bowler. It won't be this year because you can't complete passes from your backside. Their offensive line is absolutely atrocious. You could have OBJ wide open, and if Cam Hayward is in Baker Mayfield's face for 4 quarters, it won't matter. Their offensive line is a flipping joke. And so that's the one thing that everyone's ignoring about the Browns right now is everyone's talking about how Mayfield's going to improve, and they got Kareem Hunt in the second half, and they still have Duke Johnson, and they've got Nick Chubb and all the weapons on the outside and Njoku and stuff. If he can't throw the football because he doesn't have time, it means nothing. So I do like Baker Mayfield, and I think I like his moxie. I kind of just like saying moxie, but at the same time,
Moxie.
You know why I like saying moxie? It reminds me of Jonathan Moxon.
Varsity Blues. I knew you.
The hero.
Have you ever drank Moxie, the soda,
No.
out of New England? in an orange
Wow.
can. Tastes like cough syrup. Terrible aftertaste. Love it. It's good stuff.
Everything from England tastes like cough syrup. I have an English mother-in-law. So.
New England.
Oh, New England. I was going to say.
Okay, so that was a good one. Okay, the expansion draft for the AFC North Corvette. No one picked Lamar Jackson. I don't know why. He's not going to live to see his 30th birthday, but whatever. Okay, mine is a little bit different. Okay, so I had a couple in my head, and so my son's falling asleep in between periods of the Penguins game. I'm flipping through my Facebook feed, and all of a sudden I see a preview for the latest that I've seen, a new superhero. It's a villain movie, actually. And I don't know if you've seen it. The teaser trailer just came out. It's for Joker, where Joaquin Phoenix plays the Joker. And I was like, dang, this is intense. Like this is good. Like this is deep. It's dark. I like that stuff. Which is funny because I'm not a sci-fi guy, but I can get into some comic book stuff. And it made me think, and this isn't really an either or, but if you could be a superhero that's not Superman because he can do everything. If you could be a superhero that's not Superman, who would it be and why? So what superpower or who would you want to be and why? Dave, we'll go with you first. Uh-oh, Dave doesn't have any sound. We lost Bryan. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, bro, Bryan, you answer. We'll hopefully get Dave's sound back.
Okay, so I have two guys here that I need to pick between two guys, and I'm probably going to go with Captain America.
Okay.
Just because I'm a Captain America guy. I was thinking about Aquaman. I was thinking about the Flash because that speed is awesome. But there's something about Cap that's just, like I said, his name's America. He's all American. He was a scrawny little dude. Then now he's huge and he can do great things with a shield. And he's got the mind to go with it. So that's me, Captain America.
What about you, Dave? I think we have your sound back now. Nope, no, we don't.
Am I back?
Yes, there he is. All right, so
I got my colored buttons messed up in my mind. And I thought I was on when I was off. I'm sorry, my bad. Okay, you were specifically asking who we would want to be, not who the best one is, who we'd want to be.
Yes, yeah, no,
because that's a different question. Because who I would want to be, I think I would want to be Iron Man. Because you get to be just the super rich, super smart scientist. I can relate to that one. And then you just got the suit that can do everything. You don't have you. All he is he's rich and smart, and that's what makes him a great superhero. And he's got the great suit and all the good stuff. I would do that. I wouldn't call him the best superhero, but I think that would be who I would like.
So you said you can relate. Are you super rich or are you super smart?
Okay, all I heard was smart because my screen froze.
No, I said you said that you can relate to Iron Man because he's super rich and super smart. Which one are you? Super rich or super smart?
Oh, come on. Which one? Do you really think that is?
I didn't know you were that wealthy.
I'm not.
What don't we know about one David Schofield?
No. I said I related to him being a scientist because that's my I have a physics and mathematics degree, so that's
okay.
And the engineering and everything, that's right up my alley.
For me, I like the Caped Crusader Batman. I always have. I like that he's a regular guy, which is kind of what Dave talked about with Iron Man. I like that he's number one, he's a ladies' man. I like that. I like that he is filthy rich. So he just creates stuff to help him win against specific enemies. And he's a badass fighter. He really is. He has the skills. I really got into the Christian Bale Batman movies, and I was really pissed off when Ben Affleck became Batman. I watched that movie, Batman and Superman, and it wasn't horrible. But Christian Bale Batman, in my opinion, is by far the best of all of them. Better than Michael Keaton and all those.
What about Adam West?
No, what's funny is you just.
Uh-oh. Dave is
Cheaters called the
frozen.
commercial. You called him Ben Affleck.
Well, I just gave him a free advertisement. You're welcome, Affleck. So I would take Batman. Adam
I love
West.
the Christian Bale movies too. I was at the midnight premieres of them and everything. So
Especially when that the Joker it was amazing when all the characters have been so good in those movies, and the Steelers are tied into that series. The city of Pittsburgh is tied into that Batman series. So that's also so. Bryan, you always cap off the show with your own either or. You've talked about Vegas trips before you die with Charlie Sheen and Motley Crue. What was the Crew, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Motley Crue.
If
And
if this is about the Golden Girls, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Oh, okay, hold on a second. All right, so I face pressure to be a little off the wall, and so this week it's not going to be as off the wall. So please forgive me. So you have to be punished for something, okay? And you have to and you have one specific punishment. You could pick from two things, and since it's March Madness, I'm thinking about college basketball. So we have Saturday night, the semis, and then the big finals on Monday night. So this is going to be tied into college basketball. So if you had to be punished, would you rather be choked by Bobby Knight or have to wipe your mouth and face with Jerry Tarkanian's towel?
Oh. Dave, what do you think?
You come. Really? This is what you come up with. Yeah. I don't. Well, I'd say let's get choked by Bobby Knight. The lawsuit that would follow would be fantastic. So,
no. This is a punishment. So there's no lawsuit. There's no lawsuit involved.
I don't care why it's coming. It's still going to be a lawsuit. So no. I'll have Bobby Knight lay his hands on me. There we go.
There you go. I'll go with Bobby Knight. The towel just sounds disgusting. What about you, Bryan?
I'll go with the towel. I don't want the embarrassment with being a victim to Bobby Knight, even though I have a lot of respect for Knight. But I'll wipe my face with the towel.
There you go. Very good. So it, as always, never disappoints to end the show with our either or, especially with Bryan. So, gentlemen, thank you for your time. All you that stayed up this late watching us live, talking about nonsense like this. Thank you. That's all I can say is thank you. Make sure you follow us on YouTube by searching BTSC Steelers Radio. Make sure you also follow us on our audio platforms. Wherever you download your podcast, you'll find us. Just search Steelers. And as Lance Williams always says, what is it? Tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. Gosh, I got it. Tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. We'll see you next week on another episode of the Steelers Preview.